The Ibrahim Student Scholar Leadership and Dialogue Project was part a revenge, the only moral, ethical revenge that this Ibrahim family could engage in response to 9/11, where they saw Islam hijacked by terrorists, and they saw there was sort of an ignorant monolith thing. The weapon of mass destruction is mass ignorance, and the Ibrahims felt that was what was happening. They needed some remediation, and it was bringing in the best and brightest Muslim American undergraduate students studying about the Middle East, and again with a career trajectory where they would be likely and actually committed to doing longer-term work on the Middle East. And to bring together these Muslim undergraduate student scholars with Christian undergraduate student scholars with Jewish. It was really the Abrahamic faiths that they wanted to bring along. It's been since broadened. You don't have to be religious to come. You can be outside of those faiths and have different religions and come. So they broadened it, but it was initially really focusing on this theme, and they wanted to make sure that these students had a once-in-a-lifetime experience that would prepare them to be ambassadors of the United States, representing the best and the brightest, not mass ignorance, but massive information, and in contact with the changing realities in the Middle East, and have these people seated around the country. And these would all be people that would have some precursor experience before they went, preparation, to maximize what they experienced that Nashua was so obsessed with maximizing, and postscript, what happens afterwards? Goodbye, see you later? No. They have to talk about the impact of the experience and have a sort of a contract with each other and with me and the Ibrahim family, that they would continue their work in specific ways and talk concretely about what they were going to do the year after. So this is a very interesting and dramatic project because of who goes. Secondly, it's a dramatic and I think unique project of where they go. These are bookended by Saudi Arabia and Israel. It's not often young student scholars of interfaith America go and experience in the same trip Saudi Arabia and Israel. And so they have a once-in-a-lifetime uniqueness just by the content and the itinerating of where they're going to be going. And then it's unique because they have to do things afterwards as a cohort. And they also have a chance, like Nashua has, of uniquely giving back to the program, of giving back to the course that got her into this program, which she now is a research associate in, and teaching some parts of that class, and now working with the Ibrahim Family Foundation in ways that are not fully clarified but will be very shortly. So the mission of this program is to create ambassadors of America, but also people that develop in the old days, old school, a Rolodex or BlackBerry or an iPhone now, set of companions, and they can study about conflict mitigation. They know who to call in Israel on the security realm. They know who to call in Saudi Arabia in terms of the startups and the incubators which are happening in Saudi Arabia. They know the women that are struggling in Saudi Arabia to figure out what are the red lines. What red line do they know they can't cross, but what yellow lines can they cross? And are looking for social change in a way that is impact, but it's done carefully. They have now people that are part of their lives to do politics with, to do education with, to do business with. These are all things that make it special, I think. Part of the goals is the interconnectivity between America and the Middle East. Again, the grand title, the marquee here is America and the Middle East. Clash of civilizations or meeting of minds. What the Saudis, the Israelis, the Jordanians, the Emiratis in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, what they're experiencing is an America the likes of which they didn't have in their head, they didn't have in their mind. The stereotype was very different. Americans that come speaking Arabic, speaking some Hebrew, speaking Farsi, speaking languages, and knowing something about it, and looking very non-monochromatic. So part of the mission here, when I say ambassadors is what the Ibrahim family wants, part of the ambassadorship is getting the Middle East to understand maybe they need to rethink us. This is two-way traffic in the meeting of the minds. This doesn't go over there with saying, we're the perpetrator. We come to express our guilt. No. We come trying to understand what the Middle East is like and having opinions and projections. We're certainly receiving information, but we also want to give it. The two-way street exchange is very important, and it's no less important for Saudi students at universities, at the American University in Riyadh, or one of the Muslim universities we went to see the real America in the flesh. By us coming there, our class at Queens College has successfully, for 5 years, brought many of the most important actors, generals, grassroots activists, negotiators, religious leaders, to our classroom to talk to us, from Israel, from the Palestinians, from Saudi Arabia, from Jordan. They come to our classroom. The last final crossing of the Rubicon of an educator is go to the field, go to where, don't bring them to us only, go there. And that's what the Ibrahims wanted to do, create two-way traffic, if you will. So the meeting of the minds is not just us learning about them. It's us have something to teach and say. You become a better listener when you listen, and you become a better giver of information when you've listened, and you have something to say. They're meeting students that have something to say that many in the Middle East are not prepared to receive because they're shocked. So this is a very important kind of exchange that's taking place. The program was sleepless not in Seattle, sleepless wherever we were. This was from early in the morning till late at night. They were meeting, they were learning, and they were doing things. So there wasn't much free time. I'd say one of the critiques of the program, we need some downtime to absorb. And one of the things that we did on this program is we were there to learn about the conflicts and what healing was possible. So conflict transformation, conflict mitigation was one of the things we were trying to do because, again, we were there experiencing the Middle East when it was becoming unhinged. So we knew that something special was happening with great peril and perhaps some promise. And we didn't go to the places we were going to be killed or shot at. The places had to be safe, but the region was a volcano that was erupting. So we knew what we needed to understand, what's happening here. So the students were there on one instance to focus on the conflicts that were raging, the volcano that was exploding, and trying to understand what was happening, country by country, who was being spared some of the violence, what was the Arab Spring's impact. The Israeli and Palestinian conflict was the centerpiece when we were in Ramallah, meeting a broad band, and this is the key. When we took them to countries, our goal was to maximize the range of opinion and players they would meet. Israel is a robust democracy, warts and all. You can find multiple points of view. We went and we met with politicians, Jewish settlers. We met with the peace camp in Israel that monitors Jewish settlers and is against them. We went and we met with a broad band of opinion in Israel about the conflict, about the Israeli society. What do they see as the way out? Is a two-state solution dead? Or is the hourglass running out? Or if it is running out, is there an alternative? What out-of-box thinking? They went to deal with conflict mitigation in every country they were in. What were the issues? What were the crises? How could they be dealt with? Then they dealt with another issue. Each country had their own specific interesting dimension. Saudi Arabia, gender was huge. All the students were familiar with is the overarching crisis of Saudi feminists demanding the right to drive in cars and being unable to do it legally and taking risks to do things that we take to be a matter of opening a car, put your foot on the accelerator, the ignition, and going. For them, they discovered this was a very profound, debatable issue. So they focused on the conflicts and the unique issues in each country with as broad a band of sentiment as we could get to talk about it. But there was another issue we were interested in. That was economic development and technology, and particularly young people. In Saudi Arabia, went to incubators, people cutting edge, women and men working together in incubators, sitting together in an entrepreneurial setting, 20-something-year-old people getting their doctorates, in some cases postdocs already at 27. And we have with us the students that are sitting there and says, wow, we just experienced the same thing in Tel Aviv. We could get these two together, but they're very far apart. So there's a technology, economic development side, there's a conflict mitigation work side to this, and there's a general sense of experiencing the culture. So in Saudi Arabia, we did flying yoga. We did flying yoga in huge nets where they taught us to do these exercises and do yoga in a giant net, and we could fly around in this. Everyone did it. We spent 3 hours doing this. Or we met with American women that either lived with their husbands and stayed on in Saudi Arabia or married a Saudi man. And we met with American expatriates who all were entrepreneurs in Saudi Arabia that all told us different stories about what it was like as a woman who was trying to carve out a life in Saudi Arabia where the presumption is there's no life to be carved out. You're sequestered. And we learned the complexities here, but there also were some very threatening and dismal stories that we heard as well. So we met and we heard and we discovered the issues in the country, but we had fun. Besides the flying yoga, we also went and rode Arabian horses for a half a day and went to a horse farm in Saudi Arabia. We went and we played in Israel. We went wherever we did and we tried to say, what's the cultural iconic thing to do here? And what's a little beaten off the path to do? And what we didn't do, which is something we need to work more seriously on, we don't have a chance to explore the streets in these places where it's not welcoming to us. In some countries you have minders, you have guides. They don't want to expose you to the rawness and the seamy side of that country. And so we have to figure out ways of meeting, in some countries, people less formally in a less structured way. And the students, smart as they were, including Nashua, knew exactly whom are we not meeting here? Who are the faces that we didn't meet? Who are the stories and the biographies we didn't hear about? And that's part of learning. What did you not get revealed to you? And this is part of your education to be now. So I think that this more or less gives you a flavor, but it also was some seat at the pants. Some of this was driving up a mountain in Oman, and this 5-hour ride had students talking about their lives. The time they didn't have, they got to debrief, to interact, to talk about their religions, to talk about their non-religions, to talk about a love-hate relationship with a religion, to explain to the other side the diversity of their own religion. So there's an educational moment built into leisure, and that was conscious. I discovered this the year before, that this trip of 4 hours was a gift from heaven for the students to try and really get to know each other in a deep way, because what usually happens is the students find among the 7 or 8, they find a pairing, they find a significant other that gives them comfort for the first day or two. And we need to make sure they have collegial bonding, not in pairs, but a whole sense of a line for the whole group. And that trip that's organized for that purpose works. But the trip also works because it's perfectly flawed. They can't do everything in 2.5 or 3 weeks. It's a tease, but a serious tease. It's an immersion, but it's not a full baptism. It's a partial coming to grips with another civilization. We don't pretend it's more. And therefore the question is, who didn't you meet? Whose hand didn't you shake? Or in Saudi Arabia, there are many hands you don't shake because it's inappropriate in some cases, but notice the man who's teaching at the American University in Saudi Arabia, who's teaching there this year, notice this time he's shaking 10 times as many hands as Saudi women as a professor than he shook 10 years ago the last time he was there. So the students understand we're seeing a moving picture, not a still life, not a still shot. And they're only at this place that they are today in that moving picture. And their job, their commitment, watch this film? And are you a part of this movie?